No matter how much time goes by, the gory, loot-filled embrace of Diablo 4 is something I always seem to return to. And with the Lord of Hatred expansion right around the corner, it's only a matter of time before I lose myself for dozens of hours once again. That's especially true now that I've had the chance to check out the second of 2 new character classes coming alongside the expansion, the Warlock, who uses the power of hell against itself to become an unstoppable demonic magic user that even Mephisto himself should have reason to fear. This summoner of satanic sigils and swarm of sinister spawn has numerous distinct builds that make it an interesting option for different types of players, and make it less likely that you'll end up with a party filled with identical demon summoners when going toe-to-toe with the Lord of Hatred, and I truly cannot wait to see what insane builds people come up with. Combined with the new region of Skovos, an overhauled endgame experience, and a whole bunch of tweaks to skill trees and loot, this finale to Mephisto's story is looking truly epic so far. Blizzard was happy to share plenty of news about their upcoming Lord of Hatred expansion for Diablo 4, but the main course was the Warlock character class, a mage who turns the dark powers of hell against itself and uses demons as disposable tools in his battle against their kind. It's truly the most metal class in Diablo to date, and after spending some hands-on time messing around with several pre-configured variations, it's given me another reason to look forward to diving back into one of my favorite ARPGs. Like the Spiritborn class from last year, the Warlock seems to have a bit more build diversity than the classes found in vanilla Diablo 4. Instead of a ranged magic user like the Sorcerer, who has a handful of elemental options that apply different status effects to enemies, the Warlock has a version that turns him into an aggressive melee monster, leaping around to stomp the enemy flat, or a Summoner class that lets his minions do his fighting for him and has much more in common with the Necromancer. No matter which you pick though, they'll all have the same flavor of using hellish powers, whether that be unholy rituals or imposing your will over enemies on the battlefield to turn them into your meat puppets. And since you can mix and match these options at your discretion, there's a lot of potential to create a well-rounded fighter that perhaps ends up being a jack of all trades but master of none, which is both a neat option to have available and also maybe not advisable, though that won't keep me from at least giving it a try. My favorite of the builds I tried was called the Legion, which focused on summoning demons to aid me in battle, then feeding off of their death to do additional damage to my enemies. In this version of the Warlock, absolutely every attack involved using and abusing my infernal servants to deal damage, including my base attack that fired exploding fallen lunatics at my foes. Naturally, the ultimate for this build let me summon an absolutely massive demon called the Fiend of Abaddon, who swung a gigantic claymore at everything in the area, doing huge damage. It's been a while since I did a playthrough with the Necromancer, but the Warlock felt to me like a much more aggressive version of this type of minion character archetype, and I absolutely loved it. But summoning demons to do your bidding is still a fairly passive strategy, and for a truly aggressive alternative, I tried out the Vanguard build, which focused on turning myself into a hideous, profane hellspawn instead of just summoning them. This version of the Warlock involved unleashing a bunch of fire and lava all over the place, like one ability that let me summon a demonic head that spewed flames from his mouth. Hell yeah. And another that caused my enemies to explode upon death, causing a chain reaction of destruction in my wake. The main draw of this variety of Warlock, though, was Metamorphosis, an ultimate ability that straight up turned me into a demon, replacing my existing hotbar with a whole new slew of blasphemous temporary abilities as I ran around tearing my way through Mephisto's hordes with my razor-sharp claws. This build felt like it would definitely take some learning to master, especially since replacing all your skills while in demon form could be fairly jarring at first, but I really liked the idea nonetheless. Another build that really clicked with me was the Ritualist, a version of the Warlock that focused on creating sigils that impacted whole areas of the map with various status effects, often causing demons to up and explode into pink giblets. Whether I was opening up molten cracks in the earth, using totems to chain enemies in place, or hexed enemies within an area and turned me invisible when killing enemies within them, I was almost always placing lethal traps all over the map that made it impossible for demons to reach me without suffering my wrath first. Naturally, the ultimate ability for this build just summoned an absolutely humongous sigil on the ground, filling nearly the entire screen that exploded multiple times and just wiped the area clear of any baddies. I probably only scratched the surface with this build, and there were a few sigils I didn't even get to try, but it already felt super powerful and very different from any of Diablo 4's other character classes. Finally, there was the Mastermind Warlock, which was all about mobility, stealth, and applying a bunch of status effects to enemies. I definitely felt the least at home with this build, but the vibe I got from it was that it's sort of a rogue version of the Warlock, where you're given lots of ranged attacks and options to dodge around or become invisible, but are also quite squishy. The ultimate ability involved summoning a swarm of hungry hellbugs that ran around the map eating everything in sight. Overall, this one seems like it requires a fair bit more finesse than some of the other options that were much more straightforward brute force plays. But even in my limited time with it, I could see that the DPS potential on this one was pretty insane. It maybe won't be the choice for my first playthrough of Lord of Hatred, but I could definitely see myself deep diving into this option and seeing what interesting combos I could come up with. After experimenting with these options, I also tried my hand at building my own Warlock that mixed and matched my favorite abilities from each. I can't say I was very successful at doing so on my first attempt, but the vibes of using hell against itself and all the different forms that can take definitely sold me on giving this class a try come April. Though most of my time was spent checking out the Warlock and its various permutations of demonic badassery, I was also given a sneak peek at some of the new systems, like the reworked skill trees that put more emphasis on customizing abilities rather than passive increases, new details on the new endgame progression system called War Plans, some seriously cool changes to itemization like set bonuses being added, new crafting systems, and a much needed loot filter, finally, and even a fishing minigame. I didn't get to go hands-on with most of these, instead just learning about them from developers over the course of several Q&A sessions, but everything I've heard so far has me feeling really optimistic about Diablo 4's chances at consuming my life again later this year. The skill tree changes are easily my favorite tweak, as they've done away with all the boring nodes that just make your numbers go up, that's what the Paragon tree is for after all, and have instead made each skill purchase an interesting decision that augments how your character plays. Some of the examples of this are a skill tree that can turn the Sorcerer's Hydra fire summon into an ice summon instead, or in the case of the Warlock, a perk that turns a defensive wall of demons into an offensive group of roaming monsters. I really like the idea that now the core skill trees for each character will focus on modifying skills to match your playstyle instead of just boosting DPS, and I'm pretty eager to dive in and see what new options are waiting to be exploited. As for the endgame changes, set bonuses, and the new crafting systems, IGN will have plenty more to share in the future as the Lord of Hatred nears ever closer to ensnaring Sanctuary. For now, I'm sold on the Warlock and I'm already noodling on some chaotic summoner builds to let loose later this year. What do you think of the Warlock so far? Let us know in the comments. For more, check out our recent previews of Resident Evil Requiem and Anemo. And for everything else, keep unleashing demonic hordes with IGN.